The Least Developed Countries Fund was established in 2002 and aims to address the needs of the least developed countries, whose economic and geophysical characteristics make them especially vulnerable to the impact of global warming and climate change. It supports a work program to assist the LDCs to carry out preparation and implementation of their National Adaptation Programs of Action, or NAPAs. The NAPAs were aimed to identify priority activities that address the urgent and immediate climate change adaptation needs of least developed countries. And the LDCF is the only fund mandated to finance NAPAs and has managed to mobilize resources to ensure the effective implementation of other elements of the Least Developed Country Work Program. The Special Climate Change Fund was established in 2001 with the aim of supporting adaptation and technology transfer in all developing country parties to the UNFCCC. It provides finance to projects on adaptation, technology transfer, capacity building, energy, transport, industry, waste management, and forestry. It has two active funding windows, the SCCF-A for adaptation and the SCCF-B for technology transfer. To date, about $333 million have been pledged to the SCCF, of which about $299 million have been disbursed and paid. The Green Climate Fund. In 2010, at the 16th session of the COP in Cancun in Mexico, parties decided to establish the Green Climate Fund as an operating entity of the financial mechanism of the UNFCCC. This is the second operating entity of the financial mechanism of the UNFCCC under Article 11. The main objective of the GCF is to make a significant and ambitious contribution to the global efforts towards attaining the goals set by the international community to combat climate change. The GCF aims to promote the paradigm shift towards low carbon and climate resilient development pathways by providing support to developing countries to limit or reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and to adapt to the impacts of climate change, taking into the account the needs of those developing countries who are especially vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. The GCF, although, is still in the process of being fully operational and disbursing money. It's currently governed by a 24-member board, with the World Bank serving as the interim trustee of the fund, which is subject to review 3 years after the operationalization of the fund. In 2011, at the 17th session of the COP in Durban, parties approved the governing instrument of the GCF. The following year, at the 18th session of the COP in Doha, parties endorsed the decision of the GCF board to select Songdo in Republic of Korea as the host of the GCF. At the 19th session of the COP, parties further agreed on arrangements between the COP and the GCF to ensure that the GCF is accountable to and functions under the guidance of the COP to support projects, programs, policies and other activities in developing country parties using thematic funding windows. There were further developments for the Green Climate Fund at the 19th session of the COP in Warsaw. This meeting also stressed on the need to achieve full operationalization of the GCF by 2015 and urged the board of the GCF to finalize the essential requirements to receive, manage, program and disburse financial resources so that the GCF can commence its initial resource mobilization process as soon as possible and transition subsequently into a formal replenishment process. In May 2014, the GCF board agreed on 8 essential requirements for the GCF to move towards commencing its initial resource mobilization. Amongst the essential requirements were the results management framework, the initial proposal approval process, the guiding framework and procedures for accrediting entities to the GCF, and the GCF's financial risk management and investment frameworks. Since then, in June 2014, at the meeting of the international negotiators in Bonn, there were calls for a $15 billion capitalization of the Green Climate Fund by the end of 2014. As of July 2014, Korea has pledged more money, about $40 million to the GCF than any other developed country in the world. However, this changed later in July 2014 when Germany pledged about $1 billion to the Green Climate Fund. Other developed countries are likely to announce pledges to the Green Climate Fund by the end of 2014 in order to ensure that the GCF could move towards full operationalization as well as disbursement of funds by early 2015. The second major channel of finance under the UNFCCC is the Adaptation Fund. The Adaptation Fund is a special fund established in 2001 under the UNFCCC to finance concrete adaptation projects and programs in developing country parties to the Kyoto Protocol that are particularly vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. The funding for the Adaptation Fund is through a share of proceeds from the Clean Development Mechanism projects and other sources, including voluntary contributions. The share of proceeds amounts to 2% of the certified emission reductions issued for a CDM project activity. The Adaptation Fund, in turn, is supervised and managed by a 16-member Adaptation Fund Board.